dejo con ustedes a la investigadora Caroline Gillis.
I modified my title of the talk, but don't be worried, your expectations will be met, because I will reiterate and reinforce what was said today by Carolina, Kathy, and Max, but also present the effect of Didymo not only on what has already been published, but on the trophic dynamics and on the effect on fish.
Hizo un cambio en el título, pero no se preocupe porque se va a tratar del mismo tema y va a hablar sobre publicaciones que se han hecho y también va a tocar temas que se tocaron durante el día en el seminario.
Everything that I will present in these slides is from this watershed. It's one of my favorite, it's my watershed, it's my watershed in the world. And it's the Cuenca Restigouche. And just to, oh no, what do you do? I don't know. There you go. Oh. No, back. Okay, good. Okay, just got a crash course. So just to show you where in North America we are in eastern Canada and eastern Quebec, and this is the Gaspésie Peninsula, and this is New Brunswick.
Ahí, como pueden ver en el mapa, ella muestra el este de Canadá y también en Norteamérica.
So the first bloom, or first mass growths, or whatever you want to call them, the first report of Didymo being macroscopically visual in eastern North America was in the Mattapidia River in the Restigouche watershed.
El primer reporte de Didymo en Norteamérica fue encontrado el 2006.
Like everywhere where first reports were in the media, there was this sense of panic and alert where there was this lack of knowledge. Not only the lack of knowledge in Didymo itself worldwide, but lack of knowledge of what controls Didymo here in your own watershed, and also what it affects in the species present in your watershed.
Por la noticia del encuentro del Didymo se produjo una alerta en los ciudadanos, ya que no se sabía, no se había hablado del Didymo y no tenían mucha información al respecto.
It was also the first, not the first watershed, but in Canada where there was some concerns of Atlantic salmon. There was, of course, Iceland that had Didymo sphaenia blooms, and Norway as well. But it was the first time in North America where Atlantic salmon might have an additional stressor to its actual survival.
La preocupación primordial era del salmón atlántico y los daños que podía causar en él y en su medio ambiente.
So since I've been working on Didymo since 2006, the research objectives were always, what are the controlling factors of Didymo here? What controls cell presence? What controls mat presence? And also, what are the impacts of the mats on the ecosystem?
Los objetivos de la investigación es cuáles son los factores que controlan la cubierta en los ríos y el impacto que produce esta cubierta en el salmón atlántico.
So when we first started going out about the controlling factors, we were in a workshop in Vancouver, and we were looking at what are the controls, what are the factors favoring or controlling Didymo severity, or just the fact that it's present in a habitat, in an area. So,
no, continue.
Okay. So there was a pool of observations. We had people from across the world. Kathy was involved with the paper. James Cullis, he was in Colorado. I was in Canada on the East Coast. Max was on the West Coast. And we had a lot of visual and observational perspectives to bring to this paper.
Lo que ellos querían observar era qué factores eran los que producían la persistencia del Didymo en esos ríos.
So we looked at different factors, so at the physical factors and also the chemical factors. It was mostly hydrological regime, light intensity, water chemistry. And all these factors define a habitat window.
Los factores que controlaban era el régimen hidrológico, la intensidad de la luz y la química del agua.
So this square, you might have seen it before in the conceptual model paper, and Kathy presented a nice diagram of how mats can be present or not, and it was a diagram, and I saw a lot of similarities between that diagram and this habitat window. The habitat window is basically ideas of what controls or favors Didymo presence. And here we really have to reiterate again the difference between the cells and the mats.
Lo que ella hizo fue lo que ella llama una ventana de hábitat para la presencia de Didymo, donde se ven diferentes factores, como dice ahí en el diagrama: temperatura, la luz, la química del agua y los nutrientes, y eso le da como un indicador de cuáles son los factores que influyen más tanto para la presencia de Didymo como para el florecimiento del mismo.
So there's different factors, and each factor has a different threshold, a value that can be associated. Kathy and Max presented values today for phosphorus thresholds and nitrogen thresholds, so that's really nice to see those values up. Here in the external square is the habitat window for Didymo presence, and this is cellular presence, or cell survival, for the actual cells to actually be in a system and possibly attached to the substrate. Then, did you want to go? Okay.
En la ventana que se ve ahí en gris más claro, esa es la ventana de umbrales de todos esos factores en el que el Didymo puede sobrevivir, o hay presencia, o bajo esas condiciones puede haber presencia del Didymo.
And then when the factors are perfectly aligned and all the stars are aligned, well, that's when you have the mat formation. And this is the optimum habitat window for when you do have that mat presence. So it's very important to separate cells from mats again.
En cambio, el cuadradito donde están todas las perfectas condiciones para el más oscurito, chiquitito de ahí, ahí están todas las condiciones para la formación de la alfombra de Didymo. En cambio, ella hace una diferencia entre la formación de la masa de Didymo con la presencia o la sobrevivencia del mismo.
So this habitat window is not only dependent on if we're looking at cells or if we're looking at mats, but it's also very dependent across broad geographical scales. So across different regions, there's different thresholds that may be more important than others in different areas.
En diferentes áreas existen diferentes factores que son determinantes para esta distribución del Didymo.
So in Quebec, we looked at 29 rivers where Didymo cells was absent from 18 rivers and present in 11 rivers. We looked at 32 water chemistry parameters in this study.
Se midieron 32 parámetros de química del agua en 29 ríos, donde en 11 existía la presencia del Didymo y en 18 estaba ausente.
So here in eastern Canada and eastern Quebec, we have the Gaspésie Peninsula that is here, and then we have the St. Lawrence North Shore that is here. It's similar to what Kathy presented in the South Island and the North Island. So Didymo is present here, Didymo cells and mats are present here, and here Didymo cells and mats are absent. So what are the driving or the controlling factors of this difference across these scales?
Ella hace una alusión a la presentación anterior, donde en la región más oscura se ve la presencia tanto del Didymo como en su forma de célula como en forma de alfombrita, y en la parte norte está la ausencia de ambas. Entonces, ¿cuáles son los factores? ¿Cuáles son las diferencias de estas dos regiones que hacen que en un área exista o no?
Here in the results or the box plots that we present here, so on the left side of the box plot, it's the rivers where Didymo cells are present, and on the right side is where Didymo is absent. So in terms of calcium, we see that Didymo is present in higher calcium values, higher conductivity, higher hardness, and higher pH.
Esos cuatro gráficos en la parte izquierda representa la presencia de Didymo y la parte de derecha la ausencia de Didymo. Entonces, en términos de calcio, conductividad, dureza del agua y el pH, Didymo siempre está presente con todos estos factores altos, a diferencia de cuando está ausente, que los valores son bajos.
So like Kathy's presentation, so these water chemistry metrics are geology driven. So across broad geographical scales, anyways in Quebec, these parameters will define presence and absence of Didymo just in terms of cell survival. Cells can survive in acidic environments.
Disculpa, te estaba escuchando, pero no estaba tratando de traducir.
Can you repeat again?
Yeah.
The last
Okay,
part.
that these parameters are geology-driven water chemistry parameters, and that just like Kathy's presentation, that here across broad areas, this is important because cells wouldn't survive in these types of environments.
Todos estos parámetros son de química del agua, pero determinados geográficamente, y se hace una diferencia entre donde puede sobrevivir Didymo y donde no puede sobrevivir Didymo.
And then within a given ecoregion, within the Gaspésie, where pH is favorable for Didymo, well then nutrient concentration comes into play, and this will define whether there is cell presence or mat and cell presence as well.
En la región gris oscura, el pH es el que hace la determinación de la sobrevivencia del Didymo en forma de célula y también de masa.
And this again supports Kathy's hierarchical model, which I can't say.
Y eso también hace alusión al trabajo de Kathy, que es la presentación anterior.
Okay. So within a given ecoregion where cells can survive, nutrients may play a large role, as presented today. Here is another conceptual model that just reminds everybody what was said all day. So with low nutrients, high light, low temperature, and low hydrological disturbance, you can have massive stalk elongation. Otherwise, with high nutrients, it's the contrary. You have a lot of cells, and not thick mats.
Las tendencias temporales son que mientras haya menos nutrientes, existe más formación de bloom y de masa de Didymo. En cambio, con bajos nutrientes, con alta luz y con baja temperatura. En cambio, con altos nutrientes, baja luz y más temperatura, hay más presencia de Didymo, pero no formación de los blooms.
So in terms of nutrients, phosphorus was part of the theme today. And here is a model, a GAM linear model that we did for the Mattapidia River total phosphorus. I don't have SRP data, but we do have total phosphorus. And we can highlight temporal trends. So there's this discussion about in North America that freshwater environments are changing. And this is a good indicator that since the late 80s to today, there was a significant decrease in the concentration of total phosphorus in the Mattapidia River.
A través del tiempo se ha medido el fósforo total desde 1989 al 2013 y se ha visto que ha habido una disminución a través del tiempo del fósforo total disponible en el río Mattapidia.
So as stated here, when you have low nutrients, you have stock formation. In the Mattapidia River, we had stock formation when total phosphorus was very low. And this is an indicator, again, that the habitat is changing.
La formación de... Disculpa.
Stock...
Sí. Tallos. Sí. La formación de los tallos de Didymo se ve afectada por el fósforo total, y por la dinámica de nutrientes que está cambiando en el mismo río, que se ha visto a través del tiempo.
And Max presented this slide earlier today. This is a paper we worked on, and we did a lake core in Lac Saumon, which is in the Mattapidia River. And so we could assess that before 2006, when Didymo was first reported, well, there was Didymo cells in the environment in the early 1970s.
Antes del 2006 se hizo un estudio de exploración y se encontró que existían las células de Didymo incluso alrededor de 1970.
And although present, like Max said, it was very rare. We can see an increase here. There's a break in the scale. There's an increase in about 200 times the number of cells present in the sediment core since Didymo was first reported in 2006.
A pesar de que estaba presente, era muy escasa, pero se ve un quiebre en el 2006, desde su reporte en el 2006, de su presencia en alrededor de 200% más.
And just to say here, initially when I first looked at my core data and I did smears of sediment on slides and I looked at them in the microscope, there was no Didymo cells pre-2006. This graph was made by dry freezing the samples and by looking at a much more abundant number of samples to find this rare taxa. So it can often be missed.
Ella dijo que A pesar de eso, ella en sus muestras solas no podía ver el Didymo en el microscopio, pero este gráfico fue hecho en un conjunto de muestras que se realizaron y estaban congeladas. ¿Ah? Sí.
So just to reiterate that the environment is changing. Here, what's often missed in the paper and what's not usually discussed is that we also looked at the climate station that was the closest to the Lac au Saumon. And there's a 3 degrees Celsius warmer since the last century. And there's also a most interesting time series where we have ice off of the ice cover on the river is 9 days earlier since the beginning of the last century. So that, again, possibly linked to phosphorus, that the environment is favoring Didymo mats.
A través del tiempo, desde 1880 al 2010, la temperatura media del río ha subido en 3 grados Celsius, y también se ha observado que el desove del salmón en el mismo río ocurre ahora 9 días antes que lo hacía en años anteriores.
Okay. So in the watershed, we have 6 years now of data, of monitoring data, where we have 70 trained volunteers. And so now we have yielded more than 2,000 observations of Didymo severity across one watershed. And this helps us highlight seasonality and the severity, and helps us test the conceptual model.
Se hizo un monitoreo con 70 voluntarios entrenados, con 2.000 observaciones por 6 años, viendo la severidad del Didymo en los ríos.
And the methods that we did use to monitor Didymo with the volunteers is the standing crop index that we've been talking about all day. It is, again, the thickness of the mats times the percent cover. So this is just an example where you'd have an SAI of about 105 when you have 15% and 7 millimeters. And here when you have 95% cover and 20 millimeters. So it's just an index of biomass.
Este es el método estandarizado en el que se calcula el grosor por el porcentaje de cobertura del Didymo en los ríos.
So the type of data that we can get from these monitoring efforts, this is inspired by one of Kathy's reports where she had scaled Didymo severity from green being not severe to red being extremely severe. And so what we looked at, this is just 1 year, it's 2010, and we can see the severity scale, and this is the watershed. So in different areas, we can highlight the hot spots for Didymo mat production in the watershed. And here we have 6 years of data, which I'm not showing here, but every time we yield a new map, and then we can get metrics and proportions of habitat that are affected by Didymo.
Lo que podemos ver en la pantalla está basado en una investigación que realizó Katy, en el que indica el verde como no severo hasta el color rojo, que es muy severo. Y como pueden ver, la severidad en los ríos en Canadá.
So then we can look at, well, what's affecting the variability or the severity of Didymo year after year. So a lot of times we say, oh, Didymo was most severe the first year and then went less severe, but there's other factors in play. Here in the first table, we looked at the proportion of Didymo sites where we relate it to maximum spring discharge. So maximum spring discharge is here. And then when the maximum spring discharge was lower, that year, that following summer, we had more severe blooms.
A través del tiempo se ha dicho que la presencia de Didymo ha sido mayor, pero eso ella lo descarta tan cierto con el descargue máximo de primavera que hace una proporción entre el año 2010 al 2013 y encuentra que ha disminuido. Eso es una medida de más de presencia.
Okay. And then we can also look at the SCI values in terms of stream order. So in lower water years, when discharge is very low and temperatures are usually warmer in those periods, we tend to find Didymo severity more prevalent in smaller order streams than in main stem rivers where the water is usually warmer.
Donde el agua es más tibia y donde hay mayor descarga, la severidad de la presencia de Didymo es mayor.
So I heard a lot about this today, that there's no impact of Didymo on ecosystems. I changed my title because I wanted to reiterate that it might not be a large impact or it might not be a mild impact, but it's a disruptive effect that it has on the ecosystem. And so there's, based on just the presence, the physical presence of the mats in the benthic area, changes habitat and changes structure immediately. It has clear effects on secondary producers, and what I'll present to you is my new research on, my new old research ongoing, that the effect on fish.
Aquí presenta los efectos de Didymo en las dinámicas tróficas, donde la sola presencia de Didymo en el río, como genera una cubierta, afecta al productor primario, luego al productor secundario, que es como ese, parece un camaroncito, y que afecta finalmente al consumidor de ese bicho, y que son los peces.
And again, depending on multiple parts of the whole scheme of things, it's that Didymo's impact will be dependent on the successional stage, the extent of the mat cover, the mat thickness, so the SCI index together, the persistence of this mat or this biomass level in the system, and also it's very important to consider which species of fish you have in your system to assess if there's going to be severe impacts or low impacts to your ecosystems.
Los efectos del Didymo depende mucho del grosor de la alfombra, de la cobertura de ella y también de la duración, y también depende de la variedad de peces que exista en el río.
So Didymo's effect on primary producers, so this was presented by Kathy. It was also presented by me, Kathy's paper that you should read. It's a chapter. And so here is a photo that I took from Spalding in Elwell 2007. And it shows just diversity in microalgae that does live across the stock matrix in the system. So it does change slightly the diversity and slightly the structure of the diatom assemblages. This is in the Restigouche system.
el efecto sobre los productores primarios de la alfombra de Didymo es un efecto por la estructura y los diferentes ensamblajes que tiene la misma diatomea, como se observa ahí, por la formación de los tallos y por las mismas células y las diatomeas que se asocian también a al Didymo, crecen como en simbiosis.
Didymo's effect on secondary producers, so invertebrates. So we showed that Didymo altered or disrupted. It mostly altered the community structure. So when Didymo was present, percent chironomids went up in proportion to EPT.
Estos son los efectos del Didymo en los productores secundarios. En la comunidad de macroinvertebrados se hizo un muestreo antes del Didymo y después del Didymo en los mismos sitios afectados, y se ve que la presencia de Didymo alteró la comunidad de macroinvertebrados presentes y su estructura.
Here on the right, we show that in the absence of Didymosphenia mats, there's low densities of invertebrates in the system. As soon as you have the stock matrix, you'll have a boost. Here we had a boost about 4 to 5-fold increase in densities of invertebrates. So, oh wow, we've increased secondary production, wonderful. But the increase in proportion of densities is mainly attributed to the increase in chironomids present in the system, which is a smaller taxa and has lower caloric value.
La presencia de Didymo afectó la densidad de los macroinvertebrados presentes. ¿Cómo se llama? Las barras negras representan antes del Didymo y las barras en gris después del Didymo, y se aumentó la presencia de macroinvertebrados en un 45% más, y solamente se asocia a la presencia de quironomios. Gracias.
So when I talk about the importance of knowing your fish that you're studying in your ecosystem, here I study Atlantic salmon and juvenile Atlantic salmon, young Atlantic salmon, and conceptually what they do when they feed, they're here on a rock, and they wait for the drifting prey to come towards them. And then when they see the prey item, they go and they do a drift foray.
Lo que podemos ver en la diapositiva es cómo el salmón atlántico caza su presa, un salmón joven. Como podemos ver, está al lado de una roca, luego ve la presa y sube y la toma.
And so because we're changing the structure of the habitat and we're changing secondary production, we hypothesized that there'd be an effect on foraging behavior. So here, this is a drift foray, as we explained, and here is a benthic foray. So instead of seeing the particle drifting towards the fish, he'll still be on his rock, but then he'll be looking around him in the benthos and trying to spot an invertebrate to go and eat. Okay, so there's just two types of way that they feed, and they feed differently depending on if Didymo is present or not. Two ways. Okay.
Hay dos maneras que ellos se alimentan. Una es la que existe sin el Didymo y la que pueden ver ahí es con la presencia del Didymo y altera su, digamos, vida cotidiana.
So we did a study where we observed the fish while snorkeling, and so we described their foraging behavior, and all their behaviors they had in sites with Didymo, a little bit of Didymo, mucho Didymo, and más Didymo. Okay. So each fish was observed for 15 minutes, and we assessed their behaviors, and also the prey availability and the habitat was described.
Se hizo una investigación observando por 15 minutos estos salmones para ver su comportamiento, qué capacidad tenían para alimentarse y también las características de su hábitat fueron medidas.
And then we assessed prey availability in those sites to see if that would be a factor in the behavior of the fish.
Entonces se tomó que si existía el Didymo, si es que afectaba su comportamiento para su alimentación.
So we sampled the prey present in the benthos and the prey present in the drift. Two availabilities of prey.
Se midió la presencia de la presa en el bentos y en el río mismo, como en la corriente.
So the main results, and I'll walk you through this, is when Didymo is absent, fish will eat in the drift, as they usually do.
Cuando el Didymo está ausente, los peces comen en la corriente como lo hacen usualmente.
When Didymo increases, when we looked at their behaviors in sites where there was more Didymo, the more Didymo present in the site, the more they would feed in the Didymo.
Mientras más Didymo hay presente, los peces cambian su comportamiento y comen en el Didymo.
So why? ¿Por qué?
¿Por qué?
Is it because Didymo increases the number of invertebrates in the Didymo mats? Or is it because there's so much Didymo that there's no drifting prey anymore?
¿Es porque el Didymo produce más invertebrados o porque no? Lo único que existe es la alfombra del Didymo y no hay lugar donde ellos puedan comer en la corriente.
So we looked at the drift density coming towards. No effect. No effect of Didymo. No effect of Didymo controlling or limiting the prey to the fish.
El efecto de la densidad de la corriente no se relaciona con o sea, la presencia de Didymo no afecta la densidad de la corriente, así que no sería un factor que afecta la forma en que se está alimentando el pez.
And in the drift, there was no effect either of Didymo in the proportions either. No relación. But then there's also isotopic shifts. So what we did is we looked at sites, very contrasting sites. We looked at sites where there was no Didymo and a site where there was 100% cover of Didymo.
También hicieron estudios de cambios isotópicos, donde se estudió un lugar donde no hay presencia de Didymo y un lugar donde hay 100%, está 100% infectado.
So we looked at two components of the food web. We looked at the invertebrates, and then we looked at the fish. And we sampled the benthos and the invertebrates, and we electrofished the fish. And we separated the samples by taxa, invertebrate taxa, to see relationships in the isotopic signatures.
Entonces, para esto, en el muestreo se tomaron en cuenta dos componentes de la cadena alimenticia, el salmón y los macroinvertebrados. También en los sitios se tomó en cuenta el server DNet y electrofishing, y en la preparación de la muestra el número de taxa, el pescado fue, o sea, el pez fue muestreado por músculo e hígado, y
Okay. So the results from the investigation of the isotopic signatures, here is only the results for the fish. So in the presence of Didymo, when 100% cover of Didymo, isotopic signatures of delc okay, is less negative and enriched. This indicates that here there is less lipids in the fish in Didymo than in the fish without Didymo, where there's more lipids in the fish, mussels.
En la presencia del Didymo se vio que había cambios en la composición muscular a nivel de los lípidos, en el contenido de lípidos. En la presencia de Didymo, los peces tenían más lípidos en su contenido muscular, mientras que los que se alimentaban en la ausencia de Didymo no tenían tantos lípidos en sus músculos.
So that was the lipid content. Then we looked at habitat selection. If there's so much Didymo present in the system, will fish tend to avoid it? Will they try to say, this is too much Didymo, vámonos? Okay.
Hay muchos lugares donde existe el Didymo, entonces los salmones tienden a moverse a lugares donde no hay tanta cantidad invasora de esta alga.
So we electrofished and tagged fish, and then we monitored their movements for a whole season.
Monitorearon estos peces para ver hacia dónde emigraban.
Okay. And at the end of the season, we recaptured 89% of the fish that we monitored through the summer.
Después de la temporada, capturaron nuevamente a los peces y capturaron el 89% de ellos.
So the main results from this study is that juvenile Atlantic salmon, even though Didymo increased to 85% cover, the salmon remained in the site. Site fidelity was more important than Didymo increasing around them throughout the season. So there's risk for competition, predation, and all that, but they tend to just stick it out and stay with Didymo.
Los salmones jóvenes tienden a quedarse en el lugar, aunque sea que esté cubierto por el Didymo, ya que ellos toman en cuenta la reproducción antes del lugar donde ellos habitan.
Although there's a cost. What is the cost to stay in the Didymo all summer? the daily weight gain of the fish that decided to remain in Didymo throughout the season was lower, significantly lower than in the sites where Didymo could feed without, where fish could feed without Didymo.
Sin embargo, esto tenía un costo, y eso es de que bajaban su peso significativamente.
So there's a bunch of underlying mechanisms of why these things are happening to the juvenile Atlantic salmon. So they're foraging differently. They have this behavioral plasticity where they adjust to Didymo. They feed in the benthos. They choose that. And fish tend to be profitable. That's what they do. But Didymo causes a shift in invertebrates proportions. Chironomids and EPTs shift. There's an increase in invertebrates, but they're smaller taxa and lower caloric value. So the fish that decide to stay in the Didymo are feeding on smaller invertebrates, costing them lower lipid values and costing them to grow not as much as a fish that would grow without Didymo.
Los salmones jóvenes son capaces de cambiar su estrategia y acomodarse a un nuevo hábitat. Sin embargo, la baja de peso se debe a que los invertebrados presentes disminuyen su tamaño, y por eso que no se alimentan tan bien como solían hacerlo.
And so the increase or the emergence of Didymo worldwide continues to drive efforts, and we're all researching Didymo, and we're still going to keep researching Didymo to either find these thresholds to feed into the conceptual model, find those values, or just to answer more questions, because every time we answer one question, we have many more. And so one thing to remember is cell versus mats, and mats have the impact on the fish, and that impact is very dependent on the duration of the mat, the extensiveness of the mat, and it also depends on your fish. And so I just want to say that Didymo is an ecologically disruptive diatom. It's my new term. It's going to be called EDD. So there you go.
Como conclusión, que los factores que influyen en realidad en el ecosistema es la presencia o ausencia de la alfombra de Didymo, porque esa es la que afecta directamente a la alimentación del pez, y a la vez la presencia o ausencia de esa alfombra está determinada por factores geográficos y químicos del agua. Así que en realidad es, como dice ahí, la emergencia de Didymosphenia geminata es como una diatomea ecológicamente disruptiva, que tiene un efecto grande.
Gracias.
¿Alguna consulta? Ahí tenemos una. Ahí sí. No. Ahora sí.
Pero se escucha.
Ahí está.
Hola. Tengo una duda. ¿Ustedes ya han visto algún efecto sobre la pesca recreativa? Sí, ya es evidente.
It was not evaluated in terms of metrics or numbers, but there was some impacts of Didymo mats being so severe that when you're doing fishing, pesca, it's a nuisance because every time you throw your fly, you grab Didymo mucus, you know.
Pero no lo ves en términos de abundancia de peces.
Can you see it in the amount of fish?
So the decrease in pesca calidad increase number of fish? No.
But the number of fish, they're decrease. Or,
no.
and the quality of fish?
For Atlantic salmon, there's so many factors influencing the stocks and the number of fish that Didymo will not influence the number. It will influence the condition, physical condition of the fish, and hence maybe survival, but not in the sense of pesca or climate change or predation at sea.
Básicamente son más chicos porque los macroinvertebrados que hay son más pequeños. Son más, pero son más pequeños, o sea, son de una calidad nutricional menor. Entonces el pez es más pequeño y se alimenta mal, por decirlo así.
La pregunta era si tu estudio era con poblaciones anádromas o residentes.
Anádromas.
Migratorias, digamos,
Sí.
o residentes.
Atlantic salmon anadromous, freshwater in juvenile stages, unos 2-3 años, and then migration to the ocean, and then come back after 1 años or 2 años.
Y si incluye, digamos, un impacto en las camas de desove. Por cobertura de Didymo, digo.
Cobertura de Didymo.
En el desove.
Desarrollo development. Huh? Spawning. I did not investigate that, but Bickel and Close, 2008, investigated the effect of the hypoaric flow in the reds of trouts, and there was no effect of limitation of flow or oxygen to the eggs. Can you translate that? No, más.
All the factors that affect basically the productivity of a salmon river, is that the reason why in countries that have had large Didymo blooms in rivers for years, there's never been an effect demonstrated on the reduction in the actual productivity of the species?
No, I wouldn't see that being clear as Didymo having an impact on the productivity in terms of number of fish out-migrating in an adrodamus fish, either in Vancouver, your species of salmon, or in Iceland, or in Norway, where they have a lot of stocking in their rivers. So any effect of Didymo would be masked by stocking efforts.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But you could look at fish condition out-migrating. That would be interesting.
Francisca, tenías una consulta atrás al fondo. Ahí viene Francisca.
How did you do the characterization? That's a word in English.
Yes.
Of the niche, ¿me traduce? ¿Cómo hacer la caracterización de las variables que en el fondo producen el nicho? Porque mostró un gráfico de 4 variables que en el fondo es el nicho, ¿no? No, ya, entonces de otra manera, vamos a formular de otra manera. Did you do an SDM for the first...
for the isotopic ratios? Okay, so yeah, I only showed one graph of the C to N ratio to show the lipid content in the fish, but because I took the invertebrate taxa, I could create a model to see the trophic levels within the invertebrate community and the shift that Didymo has on the structure of that trophic system and where is its absence. And then
I don't
No, that's
understand.
not okay.
No, I think it's the other the question.
Okay.
When you say that there is optimal the habitat,
Okay.
the window habitat.
Yeah.
That how did you do that?
Okay. Well, it's a conceptual model. Okay.
Okay.
Ideas. Okay.
You don't use a model?
I use it to guide my research. So it's a model that presents conceptually ideas or hypotheses. Then we test the model with different projects, and then we identify values, thresholds for nutrient concentrations, temperature ranges, flow preference.
Okay.
So there was a synthesis done in the literature when we didn't publish the paper in 2012. So everything pre-2012 is in that model. Everything post-2012 is just up in the air.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
¿Consultas? ¿Preguntas? ¿No? Muy bien. Muy agradecidos. Saludos. Voy a dejar al finalizar la jornada a Máximo Francopoulos, que quiere dirigirle unas palabras.
Bien, bueno, muchas gracias a todos los presentes que lograron aguantar, digamos, esta maratónica jornada. Ha sido bastante extenuante porque fueron muchas publicaciones muy largas con una gran cantidad de información disponible acerca del Didymo, con estudios de diferentes perspectivas y diferentes aproximaciones. Y yo simplemente les quiero dar las gracias a nombre de la Dirección Ejecutiva, ¿cierto?, del CEQUA, que no pudo estar presente hoy día, invitarlos a disfrutar del cóctel y también invitarlos a los que tengan tiempo de participar mañana en la mesa de trabajo que vamos a organizar, que finalmente va a ser como una especie de reunión bastante íntima, mucho más informal, que vamos a hacer en la sala de café que está contigua al restaurante, y en la cual vamos a tratar de concluir algunas cosas de lo que conversamos hoy día y también conducir la investigación hacia otras preguntas que tenemos y que nos interesan a nosotros, sobre todo a la gente que tanto pública como privada que trabaja aquí en Punta Arenas. Y lo último es que antes de terminar, aunque hay poca gente ahora, vamos a tomar una fotografía antes de pasar al cóctel, porque se nos olvidó tomarla al mediodía, así que vamos a intentar tomarla ahora con todos los presentes y después podemos pasar a degustar del cóctel. Eso sería. Muchas gracias.